Well, welcome to the Building Podcast. Today, we're looking at Construction's Training Board, which is 60 years old this year. Our industry relies on skilled operatives and managers to deliver our projects. These can be hugely sophisticated, with lives of more than 60 years or longer, and they need to meet a wide range of client aspirations. Skills throughout the supply chain and throughout our individual companies are crucial to our industry's ability to bring these projects to reality. The CITB, or Construction Industry Training Board, was set up to help us attract talent and support skills development. This is a huge task, with demand measured in hundreds of thousands of people. So I'm really pleased to be able to welcome Deb Madden, who is the Executive Director of Engagement for the CITB, to the Building Podcast. As Deb's title suggests, she's on the front line of engaging with our industry and finding solutions to the skills challenges that we all face. Debs, welcome to the Building Podcast.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.
Good to have you on board. Now, we normally start with you giving your own words, what you are within the CITB, what your role is and what you're up to.
Absolutely, no problem. So as you've said, I am on the exec team here at CITB. And my official title is Exec Director for Nations Engagement, which does what it says on the tin. I look after our customer-facing engagement teams in England, Scotland and Wales. I also look after our marketing and comms teams, our customer experience teams and commissioning teams. So very customer-focused, working directly with our employers and stakeholders, and that's what I love to do. I've been at CITB for coming up to 28 years. Genuinely believe in what we do here, Mark, and as you know, and I've always worked in customer-facing roles here. It's a passion that I have.
Brilliant. Well, we all know, and you and I have spoken before about how important the role of CITB is. But just to set the scene, could you remind us how big the CITB actually is, what it's and sort of how it's governed and sort of how many people it's got within its within its
Absolutely.
remit?
Yeah. So we're an organisation at the moment of around 900 people. We're the Industry Training Board for the construction sector in England, Scotland and Wales. We're a non-departmental public body, which means that we are funded partly by an industry levy and also by some commercial and other publicly funded income. And our broad remit is to assist the construction industry in attracting talent, to champion skills development with the overarching goal of building a better Britain. Our purpose is to support the construction industry in sustaining a workforce that is skilled, competent and inclusive for now and the future.
Brilliant. And I think the bit to just remind everybody, and I think is that you sit behind employers within the industry. It's still the employer's responsibility to make sure they've got the competent staff and everything else, and you're there as a supporting role, not as a primary delivery role.
Yeah.
So you're a main board director for engagement. So why does the CITB struggle with engagement so much?
So there's two elements to this. Where we've already got engagement with a company, that's on the whole hugely positive, and we build great relationships with our employer customers. And at the small and micro end of the industry, we are constantly helping them to develop their businesses, not just through CITB's products and services, but also the signposting we can do to our other partners. And we see that advocacy from companies across our social media platforms, which is great. But the issue comes when we look at those companies who don't want to engage with us and fly under the radar. And that's companies who are registered with us but don't want to engage, and companies who are not yet registered with us. And it's a big cohort of generally small and micro employers. We're looking at a piece of work at the minute to look at where our audiences are and who our customers are, because that's really important. Our traditional channels of engagement, they're not going to go to our website to look for information. So we need to find them. We need to go where they are. And we need to also, I think, smash some of those urban myths that surround CITB. In most cases, the companies at that small and micro end won't actually pay a levy to CITB, but they can still benefit from all the support and the grants and the funding to help their businesses. And of course, that in turn benefits the supply chains they work in, all the domestic customers that they service, and better training, competence, all lead to more efficient ways of working for our sector and better productivity.
And do you find that engagement? I mean, you talk about the small and micros. Are they really challenging to get hold of? And how do you get hold of these people? How do you find out about these people?
So we do it in a variety of ways. A lot of them are on our register, so we have details for them. But traditional methods of engagement, dropping them an email out or even a newsletter, they get ignored. And we don't want to be an organisation that creates newsletters to go in the bin. So we need to look at different ways. So we have a small outbound calling team here at CITB now, which is a fairly new thing, and that's bearing a lot of fruit. These guys are calling the companies, having a chat with them about what CITB can offer, and we've got some traction there with engaging those very small companies to talk to an advisor, to meet with an advisor, to find out how we can help them. But the other way we're doing it is attacking where these people are. So we know that these employers follow a variety of social media accounts. So we are embedding ourselves with those social media accounts to be able to get our messaging out in a very different way than we would do traditionally. And that is helping. We're at the start of a journey though with that, Mark, and
Okay.
there's a fair way to go with it. But we recognise absolutely that our tried and tested methods in the past are not bearing the fruit that we need them to. So we know we need to do something different.
So is that a change in perception then, Debs, in trying to make sure that you're not seen as the policeman for the industry and very much, the support or the helper?
Absolutely. And I know that lots of companies see CITB as an additional tax. They don't necessarily understand the thresholds where a company would pay levy. And even if they do pay a levy, they don't understand necessarily what value they can get back for that levy. We have worked really hard over the last couple of years to simplify processes for employers. The NEST programme that we've introduced, which is new entrant support, is a real hand-holding service. We know that small and medium and micro companies are prolific in their recruitment of apprentices, but they struggle navigating that system. It's overly complicated, it's unnecessary. So Nest will take all that pain away for them. We also hear from small companies that actually CITB systems are just too bureaucratic. It costs them more in time than it does in getting the grants back. So it's just not worth the while. So when employer networks have been established so that training is heavily subsidised at source, they don't even have to book the training. They just make a call to us and we'll arrange that training for them. And the subsidy is in place and embedded. That's having some great pickup. But again, it's about reaching the right people through the right networks to get them engaged in those employer networks.
Yeah. So is there a role for people like the National Federation of Builders to support that message through their supply chain?
We rely really heavily on NFB and on all of the other trade federations that we work with to get that messaging out. We love work. Well, I love working with the federations. We're all working towards a common cause to make sure we've got a qualified workforce and that it's safe. So absolutely, they are key partners for us. The federations are key partners for us, and we meet with them every month to give them updates. They're getting updated as regularly as our nation council and board members are getting updated because we recognise the value that they bring.
Yeah. So, and one of the other, I suppose, myths about the CITB is that you're only there for the big boys, the big girls who are out in the industry, and that you're sort of responding to their demands faster than you are responding to the small and the micro businesses. How do you go about dispelling that sort of myth? How's that?
It's a really interesting statement that you've made, Mark, because if you talk to the big boys and the big girls, they will tell you that we focus all our attention on SMEs and micros. So this is the challenge we have. Look, large companies will usually have someone in their organisation, a named person who links with us directly, and they'll have an account manager here at CITB, and they will be maximising the value from CITB through whatever means is appropriate for their business. and it's generally an easily accessed group of customers. But we have focused more recently, particularly with Nest and employer networks, on that smaller end of the market, where they need more hand-holding and guidance. And we recognise really clearly now, probably more than we did 10 years ago, that this customer differentiation is really essential for our industry. We have to have different offers for different groups, and that's what we're working towards. So large companies can access whatever they need to access through our grant scheme and so on. Smaller employers, we need to do things a little bit differently, which makes things easier to access for them.
Yeah. And so how should those small employers get in touch with you? Is that sort of through the website, or is that emails to you direct, or how does that work?
So we have a contact email address which is readily available on the website. For those though who don't want to use the website, because lots of people, websites are quite old hat now for people in some cases, they can contact us through any of our social media channels. Someone will get back to them within 48 hours. And actually that's a really common way to get in touch with us now, through social media.
It is, isn't it? It's taking it. We're all having to face that that conundrum of how we deal with it.
Absolutely.
It is. So I mean, you talk about market segmentation, and I recognise that as a challenge, but also a necessity. How do you see sort of the main differentiation for the demands for those different segments are creating on the CITB?
So large employers will want competence training, leadership and management training, and they will be very direct in asking us for what they want. Smaller companies, it tends to be, particularly at the micro end, it tends to be mandatory training, some levels of competence training, but things that they have to do. Now, moving forward, we want to help drive training behaviours that make us an industry fit for the future, but there's a fair way to go with that. There's work that the industry still needs to do, and there's a lot of work that CITB needs to do. We need to work in collaboration, because whatever we do in that space needs to be co-created and co-designed with our customers. But yes, it is absolutely a different offer for different size companies.
You talk there about sort of effectively leadership in skills. And you talk about industry working with CITB. I mean, I worry that the skills are always historic. We're always looking backwards for what we're training, rather than possibly looking forwards to see what the world's going to look like in, probably 10 years' time. I was reminded it's 8 years to create an apprenticeship, and then 4 years to get through a proper apprenticeship. It's well over 10 years between the work we're doing today to create apprenticeships. How do you think we're going to get that vision to impact on how we deal with skills today? Because as a governor of a construction college, I'm very aware we're creating students for careers, not jobs. And it's a very different approach, I think, that's needed when you recognise that it's a career, not a job that we're training for. How do you get that expertise?
And technology, which is where this is headed, it's going to play a critical role for the industry, and having that, and we've got a generation of people who will embrace technology, and we need to utilise that and maximise it, because now is the time for us to embed technological skills into the competence frameworks and competence qualifications that we're developing, because how the industry trains and how it delivers in the future through virtual reality and digital technology is going to change the face of how we do things at CITB. So much more about e-learning, bite-sized learning, modular learning, and even how jobs are done in the future using drones and the golden thread for the Building Safety Act. All of that needs to be technologically enabled and digital. So we are very much aware that we need to be on the ball with industry and working with industry to make sure that that is what we are driving for the future. And we're doing lots of research around this, but again, as you've already alluded to, things take a long time to come through that pipeline. And we need to push that forward and hurry that up.
And do you think we're going to be successful in hurrying that up? I mean, I've been involved in the energy sector, and we've got very little time to deliver qualifications from scratch to provide that level of competence which is required under the Building Safety Act and other requirements.
Yeah.
and time is not on our side at all.
Generating pace is easy to say and difficult to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's particularly when you are writing qualifications and pulling competence qualifications together, because it's really important that we get everyone's view on those so that they are right for a good cross section of a sector within the industry. So the time spent doing that is a challenge, but we have to get them right. It's this constant balance between moving fast and getting it right, and we have to get them right.
Yeah.
So if it takes longer than it should, then it takes longer than it should. The important thing is that we keep pushing on that, and we keep encouraging industry to work with us on that, so that we do get it right for the industry.
And do you think, if you take a specific area of expertise, do you think you're getting a homogenous answer from industry as to what they're looking for?
No, we're not, and that's part of the issue that I'm referencing here. To get a qualification, if I take, let me just take bricklaying for example. If we want to write a competence framework around bricklaying, you have the home builders with one view, and a view of how the future of home building might look. And you have architectural brickwork experts with a completely different view. And it ends up with a framework or a qualification that's far broader than you probably originally planned. And then if we want to embed net zero and technology and the golden thread and all of that good stuff into that qualification, it becomes broader and bigger again. And it has to be appropriate, it has to be deliverable to everyone across that sector that we're calling brickwork.
Yep.
So it's hugely challenging.
So, I mean, do you think we ought to be advocating as an industry for a change in the structure then for how qualifications are delivered? I mean, I from what I'm hearing from that, it's all about getting somebody to first base where they're useful within a career in a particular area in brickwork, and then giving them a series of modular qualifications they can progress throughout the career in brickwork.
Yeah. So at the moment, as you know, there's a standard. If we look at the common route into the industry, for example, there's an apprenticeship standard which has to be met. I would never, I'm not trying to say that we would move away from apprenticeships, because we absolutely would not. It's absolutely a solid way to come into the industry. But having a modular approach will allow different routes into the industry. It will allow people to come in who can concentrate on specific elements, for example, of brickwork or joinery or any other of those standards, and add to them as they move through their career. It will get people into the industry quicker. But again, this is something modular can't be put into place until all of those competence frameworks are into place. And the alternative routes in can't be put into place until both of those things are in place. So it is a drawn out way to do things.
Yeah. And I think most people still accept that the apprenticeship is the gold standard for coming in, and the structure works well with industry and in education to be able to provide that mix. So, I think, that modular course going on from that apprenticeship would be a really strong play.
Yeah. And it is the gold standard, and we would always advocate for apprenticeships. It's that full holistic approach to bringing someone who is competent into the industry. But we have to have alternatives, because if you look at the dropout rate from apprenticeships currently, it's just way too high. So this is not just about getting people into the industry, it's about keeping people into the industry. And there's a lot more to it than just having the right qualification. Of course, we need the right culture in the industry to encourage people to stay. But a big part of it is getting young people through a qualification, through a course that gets them a job, is hugely important. So not only do we have that high dropout in apprenticeships, we're probably demotivating these young people, and the possibility that they will stay in the industry in whatever capacity is lowered because they've gone into something and not got through it. That's hugely demotivating and demoralising for them.
I mean, I'm a governor of construction college, and we spend a long time making sure that dropout rate is as low as possible.
Yeah.
And actually, we think there's a lot of very good ways of doing that. So I think the FE sector is getting quite good at it. In identifying how to reduce the people who should be coming in to those that are coming in, and making sure once they're in that they're properly supported. And that's one of the key elements that we need to work with our companies to make sure that they are supported.
And that's the key thing about the new entrant support team. It was never for me about starts, although that's a bonus because we bring more people in. It was actually about net retention. It was about, if we bring people in to this industry, we need to put something in place around that employer to help the employer to support the apprentice in the right way. So the new entrant support team is not just about, yes, we'll help you to get your apprentice in and navigate the system. But once they're in, we want to help you to support that apprentice. We want you to help you to mentor them so they feel that they're in the right place and that this is an industry they can stay in.
Yeah, and yeah, we've got some fabulous students in the businesses at the moment, and they are properly supported. They're going to change the world. I think it's really exciting, really exciting. So, Debs, does your remit then cover engagement with schools and colleges to bring people in as well? Is that does that come under your remit?
It does. But as you'll know, this is an ongoing debate between CITB and the industry. Look, our Industry Training Act, and you can read that for bedtime reading should you want to. It's freely available, but it's fairly stringent in that we should be working with post 16-year-olds. But we do have Go Construct and Go Construct STEM ambassadors, and we want to support that pipeline in. And we do taster programs working with our partners across England, Scotland and Wales. Something like 40,000 taster programs were delivered last year alone. So we absolutely do want to support in that area, but I would push the challenge back to industry here to say, actually, what we've given you is the tools with Go Construct and all of the resources in there, and with Go Construct STEM ambassadors for you to do this with us. And we can support you with that. We can help you to get on the right track. But it's a big ask to the industry to say, actually, it's you that should be going into schools and colleges, you that's giving that real, authentic view of the industry. If I or one of my team go into a school to talk about what it's like to work in the industry, are we really giving them an authentic view? Probably not. So we're never going to have the impact that a real life construction person would have going in and talking about what they've achieved and what they can do as a result of working here.
Yeah, I'm reminded I did some careers fairs for the solar sector earlier this year, and those that brought an apprentice in, the apprentices just grabbed everybody. They had queues of people waiting to talk to them. They could fill a lecture theatre with their experiences, and it was relevant, it was current, it was appropriate, talking all the sort of things that were important to them, which, okay, I'm in the industry, I couldn't touch it. And it was just reminding me that the best people to sell are those people on the front line who are just coming through.
We were at Skill Build last week. I don't know if we Skill Build over a couple of days last week at Milton Keynes, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to host the awards in the evening, which was a brilliant opportunity. But actually, I met so many of the winners and the competitors, and you're absolutely right, Mark. That real authentic voice of an apprentice who has come through that process is living the life of someone who works in construction, and is not only living it but loving it.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely the key to how we engage with more young people and really get the right young people in, the people who are committed and understand what the industry is about.
Yeah. And do you think we've got our messaging right for bringing people in? I often worry that we're held up as the villain of the piece in terms of both the way we employ people, but also things like our use of carbon and being seen to be a bit backward. But my experience of the industry is very different. And do we manage to sell that effectively to these young people?
I don't think we do. And we're dealing here with Generation Z, and we've got Gen Alpha coming up behind them, and all of those things will be crucial to attracting people. If we don't get this right, if we don't get this message right, we will see applications to come into the industry fall off a cliff, and you're clearly very aware of that. This generation currently is interested in not only their own well-being but the well-being of everyone around them as well. And I'm not sure that that our industry is too far off in what it does and what it delivers, but it is quite a way off in what it tells people it does and what it delivers. And I think that messaging needs to be really, really clear. We are at the moment putting together a new entrant promotion pack, which will launch in National Apprenticeship Week, but it's not intended as just a National Apprenticeship Week thing. It's something that we want industry to get on board with, and we've spoken to the federations about it.
Yep.
We want this joint attack on this. This is what our industry is really like. This is what you can expect to experience when you come into our industry. This is what you'll see. This is what it feels like. This is what it's really like. And hopefully that pack will be shared far and wide, and will access the young people that we need to access. But you are absolutely right. I completely agree with you. We need a different message about what our industry is and what it stands for. And I actually think there is so much innovation out there. We just don't talk about it enough and shout about it.
No, and I mean, again, we've run professional future careers in construction and shown technology just blown people away, and it's. You know, they can see that they come, you know, they're all, as you say, tech familiar, and be able to see that being used to the extent it is being used within the industry is a great boon, and there's plenty to go at, I think. So moving on then from bringing people in, how do we make sure, what's the message to customers, to industry at the moment, to get people out there? You're obviously providing support to your customers, your contractors, and your paying levy payers to get out there. How do we need to change that culture to get out there? I mean, I worry that, you know, we always blame the CITB for not having enough people, not having enough skills, and yet actually my view and particularly from energy, is that the companies have got to get out there and do it themselves. It's a cultural change I think we've got to get through. We've got to grow up in construction to say we've got to take responsibility for our own outcomes. How as a sort of supplier to the industry, do you manage to do that? How do you change the culture within our businesses to get us out and do things?
So I don't know if you're familiar with this, but we work with the Supply Chain Sustainability School, Mark, and we have a huge bank of resources there which are completely free of charge to access for anybody in the industry, or indeed outside of the industry. Anyone can access those resources, and the short, sharp, snappy pieces of learning that everyone can benefit from. As I've said before, I think the issue is not that we don't do this stuff, it's that we do not tell people that we do it. I think there is probably a cohort of organisations, companies and individuals who are not bought into cultural change, and we need to continue to support them and influence them to get to that point. But we are constantly encouraging companies to access that training, to look a bit broader than the way they recruit, for example, how they retain people, what benefits they give to people who stay. And you'll also be familiar, we will jump at the opportunity to be on a panel discussion so that we can talk about this stuff and shout about it and make sure that we are being heard. So it's about messaging, it's about the narrative that we put around things, but those resources are there as well to back that up.
No, I often think the Supply Chain Sustainability School is one of our, you know, secret weapons that nobody knows about, but it's a huge resource that benefits everybody. And I often worry that it's actually people believe it's just hard skills rather than a lot of the soft skills training that is embedded in it. And that's one of the messages I think we need to get out and about. But for those looking for their CPD, it's an ideal solution.
And there's some brilliant stuff in there, and we use it internally at CITB because it's just great training.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's great to hear that CITB is looking forward. Clearly the two big changes that we can see coming down the line is technology and sustainability, and we've got to embed those into all the qualifications and training, or even the culture that we work within. How's CITB addressing those two areas?
So we hear people talk about green jobs, don't we, all the time? There are
Absolutely.
actually relatively few roles that are within scope to us that are purely about green skills. So you're right to ask the question, how are we embedding this? And we're developing competence frameworks at the moment, which I've referred to earlier. And that is the right way to embed this. We will ensure that green skills and net zero are throughout our competence frameworks and standards. And we talk with industry regularly about what the essential skills and knowledge are for each of those roles, and how we can embed green skills in there. I don't know if you're aware, Mark, but we released a net zero toolkit quite recently.
I am aware. Yes, very useful.
It is very useful. I was actually reading it last week, just to refresh myself before a meeting I was having, and I'm actually surprised at how very useful it is, and how forward looking it is. So I would draw everyone's attention, anyone who's listening to that, because it's very simplistic and put together, but hugely useful. But yes, agree with you. We need to embed in all skills and qualifications, and we've got quite a range of qualifications already funded and grant aided. Waterproofing, roofing, supervisory stuff in there as well that can be supported. So it's worth having a look at what can be funded.
Through
a grant scheme.
I interviewed commercial director of MEPC, Chris Kimber-Nichols, a few weeks ago, and they're a major developer across the UK, been established over 75 years. They now procure on carbon. They need to know what the embodied carbon is and the operational carbon for all their developments. So having an understanding for everybody in the supply chain to be able to address those is going to be absolutely crucial moving forward. And he was well aware that he asked his main contractors, but everybody in their supply chain will have to be able to answer the questions that they are asking. It's a fascinating concept, really.
Interesting.
It is. So I suppose that's if we're looking towards the future on those ones, and we've got skills that we're addressing. Does the CITB have a vision for what the world looks like in 2030? Are you selling the CITB vision, or are you using everybody else's experience for that?
We do have a vision, and unfortunately I can't talk to you about it today because it's in our strategic plan, which is embargoed at the moment.
Okay, brilliant.
I have just been reading the strategic plan though, and it's very good. It's been written to appeal to a wider section of the industry, so that people are more likely to read it. So I'm really sorry that I can't go into detail about that, but it'll be out in January.
Brilliant. Well, the reason for raising it is that I do want people to read it, because I think one of the challenges we have is that there's a value for money question on CITB, isn't there? And that's we pay a levy as an industry. How do we understand we get value for money? And I think it's through that strategic messaging, which is crucial.
Absolutely.
And it's trying to be all things to all people, because everybody wants you to do everything and not pay for it, which is the usual challenge.
Yes, and the value in CITB is there. It's what you take from it, and how it's not about us giving the industry value. It's about us providing interventions and support that the industry can make value from, and we can support you to do that. But in order to do that, we need you to engage with us and tell us what you need. We need industry to participate more across the board. The strategic plan will outline what we think the future looks like, what we're going to do, and how we will add value and impact for the industry.
So how is the best way for industry to engage then, Debs? Are we through the federations or directly, or?
We will engage with anyone in any way at any time. And that sounds a little bit desperate, but the reality is that I want to understand our customers. I believe in what we do. I absolutely believe in what CITB does. But we can only be impactful if we engage in a deeper way with more of our companies. There's loads of ways that we can participate. We will be setting up some customer panels very soon,
Okay.
and I'm really keen to have a proper cross-section of companies on those panels. You'll hear more about those early in the new year, and we'll be advertising those across social channels and in other ways. But we want people to talk to us, and I think sometimes people think that CITB is resistant to comment, to challenge. We're absolutely not. We want people to challenge us because that's how we create progress. What we don't want is the negativity that sometimes pervades some of our conversations, which isn't useful or helpful. But the disruptor, the positive challenge, the constructive challenge, that's gold dust for us. It absolutely is. And that challenge over the past few years is what has shaped our current strategic plan.
I mean, one of the challenges maybe, as you say, is to get out and into those small and micro businesses, because they're the ones, as you say, that employ the vast majority of apprenticeships as a starter for 10.
They do, absolutely.
And it's understanding those from inside the organisation is a real challenge, because from an NFB perspective, it's very difficult to get inside those smaller businesses and to really understand how we can add value to them, because they're so busy dealing with the here and now.
Absolutely.
And getting that experience back is a challenge.
Yeah,
really
and we can, as part of employee networks, we're also going to introduce, I'm going to call it a training needs analysis, but it's something a bit more complex than that, something a bit more involved that will help small companies to look at how they develop and how they grow, and what it will take in terms of training and skills for them to do that. That's something that's coming up early next year, Mark, and we think that will encourage more people to join employer networks, and we hope that is the case.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, Debs, you said something in answer a question a couple of questions ago, which I just want to pick up on, and that's in scope and out of scope levy payers.
Yeah.
Do you want to just explain just briefly, because there'll be a number of people listening to this from outside the industry, what a levy payer is, and whether you're in or out of scope, and how that what that actually means.
Yeah, this is the technical bit that I've been steeped in for 28 years. So if I'm talking jargon, please stop me.
No, well, that's just pick it up.
We are governed, if you like, by the Scope Order, which is part of that Industrial Training Act. And I think the last update of the scope was in 1993, so fairly out of date. And the Scope Order is what tells us which companies should be registered and or pay a levy with CITB and which companies should not be. So you can imagine that 93 it's fairly out of date by now, but generally speaking, it's 50% or more of your activity is carried out in construction on site. That's the kind of definition of who is should be a registered levy paying company. You must have one employee or more. So sole traders are completely exempt from being involved with CITB. But of course, sole traders can access support through, if they work as part of a supply chain or as a subcontractor for someone, they can access support in that way.
And I suppose the other thing to say is that energy, which is a large part of what we do, is actually specifically excluded from your scope.
It is, yeah, it is, along with some, lots of other things that frustrate a lot of our customers, and of course frustrate us as well in some respects.
Yeah. So we're 60 years old this year.
We are.
And the next 60 years is going to be a time of significant change and challenge. Is this a negotiation discussion with the industry, trying to get us ready for the next 6 years and trying to create things? Should we be pushing for a change in that scope order that's 30 years old?
And that's what it would need. So I can tell you that some of us get frustrated with the Scope Order. I know that the industry get frustrated with it. What needs to happen there is a fairly long process. I'm not going to kind of dress it up. It's a long process. It's a parliamentary process through our sponsoring department, DFE. But yes, it would need to come from industry initially, through us, of course. But yeah, that challenge to scope, we would want some kind of fairly unanimous industry backing. to be able to embark on something like that. It's not out of the question, though. It absolutely isn't. And I think the time is right.
Good. So, I mean, I suppose my other question is government listening to skills within the sector? Is this something that's on their agenda? And if so, do we understand how Skills England is going to affect the sort of work we're doing in construction?
So the first thing to say is that this government is working far more closely with industry than the last government was towards the end of the parliament, of the period of government. We are having very productive conversations around home building, as you're probably aware.
Yeah. Well, with 1.5 million homes to deliver, I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, yeah, and we are making some progress there, and that will build and build. In terms of Skills England, we are not clear yet. We're working with government and we fed into what Skills England and in particular the Skills and Growth Levy might look like. But actually, Mark, the question is probably better addressed in a couple of months' time.
Yeah.
And I know that potentially you're going to chat with Tim at some point in the future, and I know he has some very strong opinion on that. So you might get a fuller response then.
Yeah. Well, I'm aware from my skills task force for the solar industry that Skills England is still in gestation period before it's going to come and throw things out. So it's going to
be interesting for us. It's going to be interesting for us. But let's see how that pans out over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's great for listeners to hear that we are engaged and that we are pushing at government and that they are interested in what we do, because and also I'm really pleased to hear that you're involved in the house building area as well. I mean, one of the statistics that I was worried about is that the last time we built 300,000 houses a year was generally late 80s. And in the late 80s, there were more bricklaying apprenticeships than there are total number of apprentices now. And yet we've got the same number of houses to deliver. So we're going to have to be looking at modern methods of construction and all sorts of things.
It's a huge challenge. Huge challenge, and we need to look at different routes in again. We're looking at working on hubs with NHBC, and we're working with NHBC anyway through the Home Building Sector Plan, which NFB and other federations are involved with. This is a massive challenge. There's no dressing this one up. It's huge, but we've got a fairly significant team on it here at CITB in terms of what we think we can do with the support of NHBC, HBF, NFB, FMB, and many other acronyms that I could just throw out there. We're an industry of acronyms.
There are far too many of them, aren't there? So that's one of the challenges.
Yeah.
Dave, I'm very aware of the time. We've had a fantastic canter through sort of engagement in the construction industry from our training board. If you had sort of a magic wand and wanted to sprinkle your fairy dust everywhere, what would sort of be the key messages that you'd like to get out there, or the key calls to arms for the industry?
The big one for me, it's really, really simple. Talk to us. Please talk to us. If I genuinely had a magic wand, I'd make all the micro companies wake up tomorrow morning, pick up the phone to me and or my team, or drop us an email or contact us on social media, because there is so much more we could be doing with that end of our market, so much more. Please don't be worried or concerned about CITB, is what I would say. No. We are a customer-focused organisation now. We absolutely are, and we want to do what's right for this industry.
That's a brilliant way to finish up with, Debs. There is no doubt at all that as the large trainers and the vast majority of companies in the industry are small and micros, that they're the people we need to be looking at to solve many of the construction challenges we've got going forward. So great that you're focusing on those. Debs, it's been a really great 45 minutes. Thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
We wish you every success on your endeavours and your engagement with the industry. And we see how important it is that you're successful. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you.